Hello once again. Here we go with more piano Pandemictivities. Today I've selected a piece that is somewhat special to me. This is the Concert Prelude in B minor of J.S. Bach, arranged in this fashion by Alexander Siloti. So it's known as the Bach-Siloti Prelude in B minor, if you want to look it up. It is easily found online, the score, and I would encourage you to get a copy and follow along. Now, my contact with this piece, my story with this piece, I didn't know it as a student. No one in my circle ever played it. I never heard of it. It is, of course, a rearrangement of the E minor prelude from the Well-Tempered Clavier of Bach, although it's, the key is changed and the hands are sort of reversed. So it's a significant rearrangement. So I knew the original Bach, but didn't know this. I heard it when I was ushering for the University of Maryland, the piano festival in the 90s, probably early 90s, and Grigory Sokolov was the guest, and I was assigned to go pick him up at the airport. I was volunteering for the festival. So I got to meet him and his manager and give him a ride in my car, and only later really learned who he actually was and the significance of what he had accomplished. So anyway, he played this amazing concert. I still remember the program. It was Brahms' F minor sonata on the first half, then 3 Rachmaninoff preludes and Petrushka on the second half. And it was life-changing for me to hear music played like that. I'd heard some great playing, but I'd never heard anything like Sokolov. So this was an encore, and I was in the very back of the hall, all the way in the top of the balcony, and he came out to play this. And the way it works is that the piece is played through twice. And the first time, you don't bring out the little line that's marked as the melody. You sort of hide it and you let the figuration do all the work. And so the way Sokolov plays it is very kind of cold and mathematical. And I even remember thinking, why is he playing like he doesn't care? And then you come to the repeat and you bring out this tune, and it was like suddenly the music became warm, and he suddenly explained what all this was about. And I still remember that moment of revelation. So anyway, that had a big effect on me of, not just how to voice and bring out a melody on the piano, but that you can actually set people up. You can set the audience up to be unusually receptive to that by denying it. You can make them get hungry and then you can feed them. So that was pretty sneaky. I will link at the end of this video, maybe I'll put it in the description. I did find a Sokolov recording from that era, probably not from the same hall, but the way Sokolov is, he plays the same program for a year at a time. He's very, very, everything is prepared perfectly, and then he plays it the same. So he's like Mr. Not Spontaneous. And it is very much how I remember him doing it. So I'll put that in there. And then I played it at a funny concert. It was a Steinway artist concert where the program was entirely stuff from people who were Steinway artists. So I played this, and then I went from here into the Hall of the Mountain King by Grieg. So I'll link that video as well. All right, now I have not touched this for years. Probably 3 years was the last time I played it. So I'm just going to make my way through it. I do remember what's going on. So what we want to do with this first time through is we're going to just show this figuration and hide the fact that there's a melody in these chords. So it's going to be like this. And this running 16ths. So the question now becomes stuff like, well, do you want all that ringing sonority, especially those little stepwise guys, or do you want to clean it out just a little bit, So that will depend on the piano, on the room. You have to be flexible about this kind of stuff. etc. So I tend to watch out, especially for things like when you get a half step in the figuration, like here, right there. That can really ring and create a lot of noise that distracts from everything else. So there, I'm real careful. Maybe other places, well, there's a half step. There's half steps all the way through here. Here, there aren't any. So maybe you could get away with that. It's somewhat personal, and it's somewhat dependent on the room. And you have to decide. Now, the thing that's really important is that the rhythm has to be very even. And when we say even, we're talking about evenness in time and evenness in sound. And I'll show you how I might illustrate this now. I just happen to have these clips here. And I'm just going to put them on the keyboard like this. I'm going to space them out. Just like this. All right, so these are these huge paperclip things. Now I've got them aligned with the edge of a white key every two keys. So if I imagine time is going this way, these are exactly aligned in time. Tick tock, tick tock. They're exactly aligned. And I also have them on the same level. See, none of them's higher and lower. So they're exactly aligned in time this way and in sound this way. Think of it as a graph. So if this one is played like that, now it happens early, and then I have this weird gap. And then what if I play this one late? And then I have this closeness here. And then what if I also play them very unevenly in time, like that? That is what you get if you play like this. That kind of sound is really pretty upsetting. So what we're trying to get is this very beautiful evenness. Now that doesn't mean that we never nudge something forward or back. We do that all the time, but we do it in a way that communicates the sense of long line, not in a way that sounds random or hesitant or jerky. So that's the main thing, actually, that is required in this piece. The main thing one has to practice is just getting that beautiful evenness, so that you never really feel the human frailty and clunkiness of piano playing. It just sounds like it's flowing. So that's the hardest part. Also notice that this is a great piece in which to practice centering, and that's the idea that there is not one location where I should lock in and I can get all the notes from that location. Ultimately, I'm going to move through the pattern. This is called centering, where this is the best place to play that thumb. This is the best place to play that. This is the best place to play that. This is the best place. Look how much motion is involved. Look how far my elbow goes. Okay, this. And if you are one of those pianists who struggles with this issue, you know, if you tend to lock in place and then the fingers try to make up for it, you end up with this. You hear that? Unevenness in time, unevenness in sound. So the answer to that is centering through that. So I'm really going to work on that. All of these motions are initiated at the shoulder, because whenever your arm moves out like this, that's actually a shoulder motion. If it hurts, it's wrong. If it's hard, it's wrong. So that's thing number one. Now, thing number two, of course, is coming back around and voicing this tune. And if you listen to the Sokolov's version, if you listen to mine, you'll hear this is very deliberate. And so we keep it hidden, even though, I'm using this version that is, I'm not sure whose this is, it's public domain in the EU. I don't really know where this comes from. For myself, when I first heard it, it was not published. It was not available anywhere. Although the piano archives at Maryland, they have this incredible kind of private library. It's not, I mean, it's public, but you have to get permission to go in. That's what I mean by private. At the University of Maryland Libraries, it's the piano archives at Maryland. And they had a... I don't know if it was the original, or at least they had a photo or some kind of scan of Siloti's original handwritten version. And so I got permission to go in and look at that, and I copied it out by hand. I don't think it was possible to or allowed to make a photocopy. So I wrote the entire thing out by hand so I could go learn it. This was before the invention of IMSLP and running water and the automobile, and we sat around campfires in the evening with sharp sticks and poked each other. So anyway, I copied it out by hand just because I wanted to play it so badly. So anyway, now we want to talk about bringing out this tune. So if we go to near the end, when we're on the first repeat, let's see. Boy, it's been so long since I played this. And now, as I recall, Sokolov repeats it right there, not 2 measures later. He repeats it 3 from the end, and I think I remember doing that. So, and here we go. Melody switches to the right hand. Sorry, what is that? Okay, we'll go back through some of that and look at it. But this is voicing as though your life depended on it. How do we do this? Well, the piano, you can only play so loudly on the piano before it sounds obnoxious. So there's a limit to how hard you can hit these notes. Plus, we want to have some kind of sense of phrase shape here, so... and then maybe come back down. All right, so if I'm going to have some rise and fall in the melody, now that doesn't leave a lot of room left for all of this. That stuff is going to have to be very pianissimo. So lots of the art of voicing is just keeping the other stuff down. So when we do this, you hear how quietly that has to be. The other thing I do is I take a moment to let that melodic note sink in to the mind of the listener before I start playing these 16 notes. I don't want to do this because that's busy and involved so quickly that maybe we don't latch on to this. So I want them to bond with this note, like little baby geese hatching, and the first thing they see they bond with is their mother. So I'm trying to get the listener to bond with this. So how would I do that? Maybe something like this. Let's see. So you hear I take a little bit of time, and what I'm really listening for is, am I able to hear the duration, not just the initiation, but the duration of that note while I'm playing these? So this is what I'm listening for. Can I hear la, that beautiful B? Now C sharp. Okay, so this is very important, and it is what Rachmaninoff meant when he said big line, big musician, small line, small musician. On the piano, we only initiate the sound, and then it just hangs in the air, or it gets cut off with the damper, or if we didn't make that much sound, it gets drowned underneath other things. So we are not responsible for continually generating sound on that note like a violin or a clarinet or a singer. The organist, of course, continually generates sound with minimal effort. All I have to do is sit there. And it keeps making the same amount of sound. But we have this unique disadvantage of we initiate the sound and then we can't do anything to it. So the only thing you can do to it is make sure everybody latches onto it when it begins, and then you don't interfere with it for as long as you want the listener to pay attention to it. So we're trying to draw people's attention to something and then not distract them from it. Okay? Like we can shoot a firework into the air, but after that, it follows its own course. We can't do anything to it. We can't make it brighter or louder or anything. We just hope that the audience doesn't get distracted by it. So now that is the real challenge of this piece, is to make these long notes with all these interrupting 16th notes sound like a long melody. Okay, so I'll just play through a little bit here. This is like the second time through. I'll just do a couple bars of that lead in and then play some of the melody and remark upon whatever happens. So. Darn it. It says. So I really want to reach for that because that huge octave leap. And notice I can highlight the importance of that note by the way I roll this chord. I can suggest to you that something important is coming. And in that way make the melody note more effective. So if I back up a couple bars, And likewise there, I have the suspension here, lots of sound, and now I've really got your ear on that, right? So now I can afford less suspension and resolution, and that makes a nice two-note phrase. So now listen. Okay, so you hear these fairly strong suspension resolution. Da, 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 da. And again, the actual half notes, the amount of sound you make on those half notes is important, but it's not enough to communicate these phrases. You really do have to work with the timing of the sixteenths and the way you roll the chords in order to get this effect. You have to marshal the resources of the whole piano. It's really, one note may sound like it's the focus of everything important that's happening, but if you as a listener are brought to the point of believing that moment to be incredibly important, probably other things have participated in convincing you that that moment really matters. Everybody has to work together. Everything has a role to play. Even these seemingly insignificant things like these little 16 notes play a role by occupying a low level of the sound, and they have subtle push-pull in the rhythm that helps suggest that something important is about to happen. Everything plays a role. Everything is needed. Everything is important. So, this little Pandemictivities series is supposed to be about easy pieces. Technically, yes, it's not that hard. Some people will find some of these larger chords to be rather inconvenient. You can roll them and break them however you want. You don't need giant hands to do this. Its control of sound is actually quite challenging here. So if you've never really played gorgeous melodic sound, this is a great piece to try it out on. And you might find that you're capable of making your piano sound much more beautiful than you thought possible. So I recommend to you the Bach-Siloti Prelude in B minor, and I'll link my own playing of it and Sokolov's playing of it, and you can check those out. All right, everybody take care of each other, practice social distancing, spend some time with music that is beautiful, that consoles you, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.